Hey everyone, this is Tammy Painter, and you're listening to the Book Owl Podcast, the podcast where I entertain your inner book nerd with tales of quirky books and literary lore. So, it's episode 14, and because this is normally around the time of year Mr. Husband and I are off traveling, I had planned to do something related to travel books, which I still plan to do, but I recently posted an article on my writing blog that got a lot of attention, and since it is book related, I thought it would make a great topic for the podcast. So if you have read that post, this will be a bit of a rerun. I will be adding in my own snarky comments though, so it'll be a little bit different. But for those of you who haven't read it, I hope this gets your brain cells thinking about books and about authors and about the future of writing. So, jumping right in today, the question is, will authors go extinct? And this was on my mind for a while because while I was working in the garden a couple weeks ago, I was listening to an episode of the Career Author Podcast. And in this episode, the guys, who are Jay Thorne and Zach Bohannon, they were chatting about technology and publishing. And I kind of expected it to be about software like Scrivener, which is a writing program that helps you keep your things super organized and makes shifting scenes and chapters very convenient. Or maybe about Vellum, which is a book formatting program. But it turned out to be way more and way scarier. The technology they ended up focusing on was AI, and that's artificial intelligence, in case you didn't already know, and specifically AI that learns from books being fed into it, then can spit out an entire novel. A novel it has written itself, based on the tropes and the writing style used in the books it gobbled up in its creepy little AI brain. Now, the book lovers out there are probably thinking, what? AI can't do that. Well, it kind of can. It's already being used to write various types of articles that end up getting published by pretty big news agencies such as Associated Press, Forbes, and the LA Times, as well as smaller agencies looking for cheap content for their websites. It's known as automated journalism, and the main reason it exists is because, well, why would you want to pay a bunch of pesky reporters who demand weird things like salaries and benefits when you could simply grab an AI-generated article for probably pretty cheap? And to give you an example of how rapidly generated content can drive down salaries for writers, some of the magazines I've written for in the past have paid up to $500, $700 for an article. But I've also written web content where the articles were just as long as those magazine articles, and they paid me around $15. That's 15, not 50. And that's considered high. Many of these web content factories will pay under $10 for an article, but AI could drive down even that small amount. And I'll return to this concept and get a little bit more into it in just a bit. But for now, let's get right back to the books, because right now, I think, there's really only been one serious attempt for AI to write a novel, and it did not go well. But this is AI we're talking about. Its job is to learn, and it learns quickly. It won't be long before it can crank out a readable novel you won't be able to distinguish from a human-written novel, which, as an author, is scary, and it was to Jay and Zach, who predicted that the job of author, as we know it, might go extinct. And they were thinking probably within a couple decades. And before you shout, "But that's impossible! Writers will always write! Readers will always read!" Well, taking an example from the guys, that's probably what bookbinders once thought. Now the only bookbinders you'll find are artisans on Etsy. And really, looking across the board of history, plenty of other jobs have been made extinct, or at least mostly so, by advances in technology. Now, I'm not a Luddite. I love my Mac. I love playing with programs to make book covers and format my books. I love being able to download books within minutes from the library and to stream yoga videos to work out the kinks at the end of the day, but I still have enough wariness over AI to think this extinction could become a reality. Think about it. What does generating products by machine do? Just kind of think in general about something like shirts or furniture or anything else that used to be handcrafted. And I'm going to go a bit into the world of economics here, but don't be scared. We'll come back to books as quick as we can. So, first up, machines speed up the process of manufacturing, and that just naturally adds more products to the market. Second, it drives down prices because there's an easy abundance of cheaply made product. And it's cheap because you get to get rid of most of those expensive humans. Third, it creates a uniform, standardized, and, dare I say, a cookie-cutter product. All three of these combined are the perfect ingredients to kill off the species Homo authorus. So let's look at each of those three things a little more closely, and we'll see how it relates to writing and books and extinction. So first we have speeding up the process. Now, there's already human authors blowing me out of the water by being able to whip up books in only a few weeks. And I'm not kidding, like a few weeks. But even that pace is going to seem slow when a trained AI can churn out a book in only a few minutes. Now, I'm not one to complain about more books, because I love books. But it's already a crowded market out there for authors. There's something like, and I am not exaggerating, nearly 1 million books self-published in the US every single year. But AI's productivity could flood that market with books, making it even harder for human authors to get discovered, especially pokey authors who can only write, maybe 3 books a year like me. And with retailers often favoring new releases, well, AI will easily win that game and push even the fastest author to the bottom of the heap. Now, next we have AI driving down prices. Okay, so a certain store named for a certain river has already encouraged a race to the bottom of ebook pricing. And some customers now, they've been, trained to expect this cheap price, and they will scoff if a book is more than 99 cents. Although on other storefronts, I will admit that many indie authors have been able to resist this by successfully pricing at $4.99 or more. But if AI can crank out book after book, it's going to have plenty of product. And with volume comes low prices. Sure, the first AI books will probably seem like novelties, and people might pay higher prices for them. But before long, I can see AI books rarely being placed above that 99-cent price point. And once again, human writers who have bills to pay and wine to buy risk losing this low-price competition. Remember, a 99-cent book on that retailer nets the author a mere 34 cents, on which we have to pay taxes, dropping the actual take-home royalty to around 15 to 20 cents. If we're priced out or have to price so low we can't keep up our wine habit, as well as being pushed off the virtual shelves by those AI new releases constantly coming out, well, let's just say resource and habitat loss is well known to be a key factor in any extinction. So then third, we've got to look at that cookie cutter product. If AI learns to write from books it's fed, it's going to create books similar to those books. Makes sense, right? Which is fine. All authors take inspiration from books we've read for our own work. But here is where I stop blaming AI for the future extinction of writers. Because this third point got me thinking about how some writers are already training readers. I listen to a lot of writing podcasts, and I read plenty of books on the writing craft. And I'm constantly hearing/reading about the expected tropes in certain genres. And these books and podcasts will literally say, if you write in genre X, you must have A, B, and C to satisfy readers, because readers expect to see A, B, and C. And they will give you crappy reviews if you don't have those exact things. And yes, I understand certain tropes make a story work. You're not going to have a romance novel without 2 people working their way around a relationship. You're not going to have a thriller or horror novel without some sort of really, really bad guy. But what drives me bonkers is when authors are advised to include very specific scenes, very specific actions, very specific character types and character motivations to satisfy their genre's tropes. In other words, writers are being advised to write cookie-cutter books. And hey, I'm not saying I don't like cookies, but I can't tell you how many indie-written books, and even traditionally published authors' books, I've picked up that are cookie-cutter versions of each other, or of, more currently popular books. But does the fault go to the writer or to the reader for that? Because maybe that's what readers have been lulled into expecting. Don't think too hard. Just grab the book that looks like the past 3 books you've read. Don't expect the unique. Don't expect the unexpected. Expect the same story you're familiar with, because why risk discovering something new? Why take the chance you might not like it? Stick with what you know. Keep eating those same cookies. And the same goes, not just what's in between the book covers, but the book covers themselves. I participate in a few author-sponsored promotions each month, and in those promos are, on average, let's say 50 books. And well over half of the urban fantasy books will have the exact same cover, or, at least the same style. It's an attitude-filled 20-something-year-old on a bright blue, green, or purple background with kind of black around the edges and shiny text for the title. And usually that title is in the exact same font between all these books. And we as indie authors are told this is exactly what we are supposed to do. Make a cover that matches genre expectations. Make the cookie cutter version, even if your book looks the exact same as everyone else's, because otherwise, readers won't know that's the story they want to read. You know what happens to my eyes when I see those covers? I pass right over them. They all look the same to me. Call me the odd man out, but I'm more drawn to the well-done, unique cover that makes me curious about what's inside. I appreciate the author who is trying to stand out, trying to be different, and trying to catch my eye. And it's that desire for the unique, for the something special, for the original story, even if that story was inspired by another author, that human writers should be training readers to seek out. Because if we keep training readers to only want the same old story in the same old package, well, AI can do that in the blink of an eye, and authors really will go extinct. After all, AI can crank out those page puppies far faster than any human, and they're bound to do it cheaply sooner or later. There'll be no point to us human writers if readers remain satisfied with the same cover, the same characters, the same story, the same cheap price point over and 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 over. And, sure, a familiar story is fine now and then, but shouldn't we be seeking out new twists? Shouldn't we be encouraging new ideas and new glimpses into the world? We should crave what makes us human, which is our crazy amount of innate creativity and curiosity. And okay, I know other creatures are creative and curious, but shut up, I'm on a roll here. So the question comes around to, what can we do? I mean, we can't stop the progression of AI technology, unless we can hire some Luddites to break the machines like they did in the weaving looms back in the day. And to be honest, most of us have absolutely no say in the rapid advance of something we find more than a little creepy. But what we writers can do is stay unique. We can write something without the crutch of strict tropes. Build a new world. Tell a tale that is completely new, not one that follows the same outline everyone else is following. Create a cover that stands out, not one that blends in. Be brave enough to make the regular price of your hard work more than 99 cents. And readers, you have a job too. Like I said, you should be seeking out the unique. Step out of your book comfort zone now and then. Don't grab that 99-cent book with the same old cover. Opt instead for perhaps a $3.99 one that looks a little different. If you can afford it, of course. If you can't, go ask your library to carry that book. And readers, get to know the human behind the book. Sign up for an author's newsletter if they have one. Follow and interact with them on social media. Get to know them. Well, without, being a stalker, of course. If they sell books directly to readers, purchase from them. Because the more you get to know just how much work goes into those non-cookie cutter stories, you will appreciate a human-made book more than ever. And that understanding, that appreciation, might just keep us writers from going extinct. Or, at least delay the extinction until I make my first million. That'll be the day. Okay, my little humans, go forth and read and write, be different, expect the unique, and use your minds. Alright, it is time for me to get off my soapbox and share some updates. As for writing, speaking of covers, I've finally honed in on the style of cover I want for my Cassie Black Trilogy. I've also figured out titles for all 3 of the books, and I'm pretty darn close to nailing down the descriptions. And my first draft of book 3 is progressing.